Okay, so this week's topical segment, we're going to do a little bit of an exercise where we look at some quarterbacks who have some new places, and we're going to kind of chat back and forth about some guys we think are going to have success in their new homes and some guys who we think are not going to be as successful in their new homes. To kick it off, because we're each kind of going down our own respective lists here, I have a little pop quiz question for Lucas, and if Lucas gets the question right, he is allowed to select his first quarterback that he would like to talk about, and if he gets it wrong, then I get to be the first one to choose. So, Lucas, here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Who was the passing yards leader in this previous NFL season? I'll give you a clue.
Dead air.
I'll give you a clue. The team's record was dog crap, but the guy still put up a ton of numbers.
God. I knew it the previous season. It was Jameis Winston, but I don't know if this past season.
There really are only so many guys that it could be.
God, was it Deshaun Watson?
It's Deshaun Watson.
Oh, my God, I'm nuts.
It was.
Wow.
Yeah, well, I think the clue hopefully helped because all the other guys who were in the top five. Well, actually, Matt Ryan was in the top five as well, and he had a pretty dog crap record too. But all right, Lucas, you go ahead and break down your first quarterback here.
Okay, I'm going to pick a quarterback that got traded, obviously. A quarterback that I think will not be as bad as he was on his last team, but won't be what this team is looking for. I'm talking about Carson Wentz.
I was going to pick him with my first pick, so glad you got that little guess for yourself.
Carson Wentz, I think – okay, so I was a little hard on him maybe in Philadelphia. I thought he was horrible. I think that he stinks. I think in his new position with Indianapolis, he actually will be a lot better, but I don't think that he's the guy that's going to push them over the edge. I still think that they'll lose the division to Tennessee. I think there's a chance. I don't want to say there's a big chance. I don't want to say that they will make the wild card, but I think there is a small chance that they will, especially considering that their division, they have basically automatic 4 wins. Although Jacksonville is probably questionable.
The only competition they have in their division is the Titans.
Yeah.
And last year, they held their own in that division with Phillip Rivers, who had a decent year. I don't think he blew the doors off by any means. I think his numbers are pretty good, but definitely on the letter, half of his career and on the way out. So I think it's so funny, man, because I think of a couple of years ago when Carson Wentz was on track to lead the Eagles to the Super Bowl, and people were talking about that he was up for MVP at that time before he got his injury and went out for the year, and he was looking like the second coming in Philadelphia, and it was crazy. He was
I have a conspiracy theory.
Well, let me finish this thought. Yeah, but he looked so promising, and the year before last year on that bum ass Eagles roster, he carried that team to the playoffs. They lost in the wild card because he again went out with an injury. But, he basically carried that whole team with barely any weapons to the playoffs. And he's had so many flashes in Philadelphia. And he's had his share of mishaps too. And he's, like I've been saying, these injuries have been, questionable. So the thing that's funny to me is just how the perspective on him has just completely turned into that he's almost like a bust. And I don't know, if he stayed in Philly any longer, he would have been, continually hated on. So I think for him, getting a fresh start in Indianapolis is perfect for him, considering his connections with Frank Reich, who was, his OC the year that the Eagles went to the Super Bowl, and he had his MVP, air quotes MVP, run year. I think it's the perfect setup for him. He's got a ton of weapons. He's got a good running game. That defense is nasty. So he's set up to have a phenomenal year. If he can just stay on the field and he keep his confidence up, which I think is a big thing for him too, he's going to ball out, and Indianapolis is going to have won that trade, which I think they traded a little bit more than the Panthers traded for Darnold, but it's still a big trade.
Yeah. So here's my conspiracy theory about that.
About his Eagles?
About his Eagles run.
Yeah.
I believe that before that Super Bowl season, he sold his soul to the devil. Here's why.
It's not where I thought you were going to go.
He goes out for 11 weeks and he's playing the best football a quarterback could have been playing during that time. And he was sensational. So good. And then he tears his ACL, and Nick Foles comes in, and he leads them to the Super Bowl. Here's why I think that he sold it. So he goes to the Devil. He's like, I want to win a Super Bowl for Philadelphia. The Devil's like, handshake, boom.
Well, I think the verbiage has to be a little bit more like, I want to win a Super Bowl with the Eagles this year. Where he's like that. He's not playing, but like they won.
Exactly. So like right. He goes out, they go on to win. So Philadelphia wins the Super Bowl, but he is now in the shadows of Nick Foles for like the rest of his career, like wondering now, like they get rid of Nick Foles and they're like, oh my God, we should have kept Nick Foles. This guy stinks.
Yeah, I think all joking aside, I do think that Nick Foles is a huge reason as to why things didn't work out for him in Philly.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because
that's a huge confidence buster.
When the dude has that good of a playoff run and wins Philadelphia its first Super Bowl, and it's not you, that's going to be tough.
It's tough to come back from.
And Philly's a tough town to have that scrutiny too. Yeah. So I think the fact that he's in Indy now and he's the guy,
a fresh start, curse is broken.
Right. He's going to have to find something else to sell to the Devil to get them to the Super Bowl. But I love the move for all parties involved. I think Philly's been pretty confusing recently with a lot of their moves, and this one, because it's so weird that they fired Doug Peterson, so you would think, okay, well, they're probably going to see what they can do with Carson Wentz, try and salvage this, and no, they're both gone. Yeah, and they have Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni as their head coach, who doesn't really inspire much from anyone who's saw his press conference and his moves in the offseason thus far. So, fresh start for sure.
Okay, so last thing on Carson Wentz before we go over to your player. Do you believe that they get one playoff win this year?
This season?
Yeah.
Yeah, because their division stinks for the most part. The Titans are legitimate, and they're a good team, and they've been good for 2 years in a row now. But they're a team that I could kind of see on the fringe being like, because they had to get rid of some defensive players in the offseason this year. They lost Corey Davis. Like Ryan Tannehill, is he going to be really a top 10 quarterback another year in a row? Like, seems like kind of a question mark team to me. And with a team like the Colts, where they've got solid grades all across the board, I don't have any questions about them going to the playoffs and getting a win. They almost beat Buffalo last year with their current roster. Like it wasn't a blowout or anything. They kept that competitive to the end of the game. Yeah, I remember listening to on the radio in the car, like clenching my steering wheel because I had money on the Bills. But I think they'll get a win. I think they will.
Okay, go ahead with yours.
All right, so we kind of talked about them at the news segment of the show a bit, but my selection for a quarterback in a new place that's going to have success is Sam Darnold.
Completely agree.
I think that his experience with the New York Jets was a total tire fire, and it is not his fault. He was surrounded with his first year. He had Todd Bowles and whatever. I mean, he wasn't the best Jets head coach. Nothing really terribly of note. More so when they got Adam Gase is when the downfall of Sam Darnold truly begun. Yeah. Because that dude, his mentality as a starting quarterback in the NFL seemingly has been fractured and broken the longer he was on the Jets, and he had been dealing with not only mental hurdles, but also lots of physical hurdles, getting injuries a lot. He got mono.
Can't forget about that.
I mean, like that's the disease.
Kissing too many girls.
Yeah, the sickness you get from makeout point. He's got that as a starting quarterback in the NFL. So he just had everything go wrong for him, and they never surrounded him with any real talent at wide receiver. Like I know they drafted Denzel Mims last year, but I'm pretty sure he was injured a lot of the time, and shocker, their offense couldn't stay healthy on the field, and they brought in a couple of pieces like Jamison Crowder, but like who cares?
Terrell Pryor,
right? They got rid of Robbie Anderson, who he will be reuniting with in Carolina, which is kind of cool.
Great point.
No, but similar to Wentz, I just think a fresh start is exactly what this guy needs to jumpstart his career. And I think we can give him an honest evaluation moving forward here. I think any sort of Jets tape that is watched has to be
thrown out the window.
Yeah, you kind of just have to look at it with an asterisk. He doesn't look great, and he made mistakes. And he also did good things from time to time, but he was on the Jets. And one of the worst Jets teams, in general, and maybe their team history, they're pretty horrible.
They are.
In Carolina, I think he's gonna flourish because he seemingly has a pretty smart head coach in Matt Rule, who last year the Panthers were blowing this thing up from the bottom, similar to the Lions last year, and they kind of pulled out a couple surprising wins, and they
killed us.
Well, with PJ Walker, they murdered the Lions. I think they have a coach who actually is pretty competent and very well liked within that locker room, and will be a good nurturing presence for Darnold rather than Adam Gase, who was purely toxic from everything we've heard about him ever. Yeah. He'll have actual weapons with Christian McCaffrey.
I was going to say their wide receiver core is quietly good.
Even though they lost Curtis Samuel, too.
Yeah.
He left in the offseason to go join the Washington football team.
DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, those are some solid wideouts.
And who knows, maybe in the draft, what if Kyle Pitts falls to them, or maybe not Kyle Pitts won't fall that far.
I can't see Jamar Chase or Kyle Pitts falling that far.
I think it's still got a darn good weapon.
I mean, that's a great spot to get a wide receiver.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So they can surround him with talent. And I think, like we were kind of talking about at the top of the show, it seems like the Panthers, this is their plan. They're probably not going to take a quarterback to challenge Darnold unless, Zach Wilson or Justin Fields magically falls in their laps at 9. They don't have to do anything. Maybe that would happen, but I think he's going to have a fresh start, and I think he's actually going to have a decent career if things pan out here.
I completely agree. I think he'll have a good season. Okay, my quarterback that I think will succeed. He's technically not a new face in a new place, but I do believe he's the starter for this team for the first year of his career. And if he's not, I'm going to be outraged. Jameis Winston. I think Jameis Winston will actually be very good on the Saints this year. And if Taysom Hill is starting, that is an abomination of a team. And Sean Payton should be fired on spot.
Well, Taysom Hill's making the starter
money, which is crazy.
Jameis is making very well paid backup money.
I'm a 1 year, $11 million deal. I have to imagine that he starts. I cannot see Taysom Hill starting at quarterback, but we'll see eventually. Probably going to have some sort of QB battle, which if Jameis doesn't win, I will retire from ever talking about football again. But I'm a believer in LASIK eye surgery, and I'm a believer in Jameis Winston. The only person ever be in the 30-30 club, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. He couldn't see the defense back then, and he still threw 30 touchdowns and the most passing yards in the league that year. So on a good Saints team, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas, Slant Boy, some other good, wide receivers and tight ends, I have to believe that Jameis Winston will be good this year.
Well, I am kind of on the opposite side of the fence, unfortunately.
That's all right. Play devil's advocate.
Well, yeah, Jameis isn't exactly a spring chicken at this point.
No.
He had 5 full seasons in Tampa. They gave him the 5th-year option to see if they had something with him, and the Bucs obviously went with Tom Brady after that expired. But
how can you blame him there?
Right, but haven't we seen enough of him to know what he is? I know we haven't seen much of him in New Orleans, but I feel like even last year we got a little bit of a sample size, and it wasn't off the charts crazy. I mean,
he barely played. Here's my thing. We haven't seen much of him on the Saints. We also have not seen much of him with the LASIK eye surgery.
You're really
I'm telling
hammering
you,
this home.
I am, and I'm going to, because the guy's got 20/20 vision now, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what LASIK eye surgery does, right?
Well, he's the number 1 overall pick without the eye surgery. So
that's what I'm saying.
There's talent there.
There's talent, dude. I mean, he threw for the most yards in the NFL when he couldn't see. It's crazy.
Okay, but the Saints lost Emmanuel Sanders. He's not there. So
away.
they have Alvin Kamara.
They got Michael Thomas.
Kind of that satellite running back, and he'll sit back there and get passes and stuff, and he's good in the pass game. They have Michael Thomas.
Slant boy.
But who else do they have? Really?
That's a great question. I can't remember off the top
Our
of my
boy
head.
Josh Hill, their tight end, is now a Detroit Lion.
Oh, true.
Because Dan Campbell plucked his personally picked tight end for our team. I mean, they had to make some significant roster moves, I'm pretty sure, to keep this thing afloat because they were by far the team in the most salary cap hell at the beginning of the offseason.
How
here.
are they in salary cap hell?
They at one point, I think that they were close to $100 million under the cap.
My lord.
It was insane. So I don't think that they've been making a lot of additions. I think they've been making subtractions, if anything.
Probably.
So, yeah, for me, it's just I've seen enough of Jameis to kind of know what he is. I think Sean Payton is one of the best head coaches of all time. So give him the benefit of the doubt that he can do something with Jameis. And he clearly saw enough that he liked to bring him back for at least another year, but not enough to offer him a long-term contract. Which
I mean, who knows? Maybe Jameis didn't want that.
It's a good point, too, in a COVID season. Yeah.
COVID season, I mean, he goes out there, he balls out, then he gets that fat contract from some other team.
All right. Well, here's my quarterback that I think will not do well. Yeah. And I think the easy layup here you're probably thinking is Andy Dalton. But I'm not going for Andy Dalton.
No.
I'm going for Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Oh, really?
I don't think he's going to do well because anytime that he has been installed as the starter in his illustrious career, where he's been in almost every team in the league at this point, how's that gone?
Not great.
Not great, right? Not good. There's a reason he's bounced around to every other team, okay? I understand Washington they think a quarterback away from ruling the NFC East, which with that defense and offensive weapons, it's a fair conclusion to jump to. But Ryan Fitzpatrick has done nothing throughout his career to prove that he's going to be a plug and play. This guy's going to take my team to the promised land guy. That's Tom Brady. That's not Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I would say that he hasn't had a full season like that. He's obviously had those 5-game spans where he's Fitzmagic.
Fitzmagic and Fitztragic.
Yeah.
You hear about it all the time.
Yeah. I mean, that is the up and downs of Fitzmagic.
It is weird with him that in the last couple years, especially since he went to the Bucs and the Dolphins, he's kind of got this a little bit more don't care, just going to fling it and have fun. And he's been better in flashes when he plays that way, but also that leads to games where he throws 4 interceptions and looks terrible. So
you know who he is? He's a poor man's Brett Favre.
But Brett Favre's got Hall of Fame criteria.
That's why I say he's a poor man's Brett Favre. I mean, he's Brett Favre, but not as good. So nowhere near as good.
So is that someone that you would want to go into your season with a stacked team? In some areas, they're not a perfect team. Don't get me wrong, but
they do have a very good team, though.
They've got a scary defensive line, some legit offensive weapons. Their secondary is pretty good. Offensive line is all right.
It's passable.
I mean, they've got enough firepower in that division to really make a push and be the number one seed in that division. So if I was a Washington fan, I wouldn't be feeling particularly juiced about having Ryan Fitzpatrick be my quarterback going into the year. And this is someone who has Jared Goff going into the year as their quarterback. And that's got plenty of questions of its own, but I think that's a more promising outlook than Fitzpatrick.
I would totally agree with that, yeah. No, I think it would be super interesting. But, I mean, what else can they do at this point? Because, I mean, they don't have very high.
They have to draft someone at this point. If they want to do something additional this season, they pretty much got to draft someone. Because who else is sitting out there as a free agent at this point?
Well, nobody, basically.
And as far as getting a trade going for a veteran, I'm kind of surprised they didn't make a move on Sam Darnold. Or maybe they could. Garoppolo. Maybe now that Teddy B's kind of on the block, maybe having him be with Fitzpatrick would make me feel a little more comfortable.
You just keep swapping them out.
Well, they're both journeymen jumping all over the place. But, at least Teddy B has gone spots, and he hasn't thrown those 4 interception games and looked like a train wreck.
Teddy is going to be 15 for 27, 144 yards, no touchdowns, and no picks.
Right. He'll play a squeaky clean game manager game. And if that sounds more like what they need than airmail Ryan Fitzpatrick throwing,
it's a lot more exciting, though.
I guess
it's going to put asses in the seats.
Yeah, definitely will put asses in the seats for sure. And he's a lot of fun too. So from that perspective,
good locker room guy.
When the good times are good, like he seems like a fun guy to have on the team, and he'd be good. Before we even got Jared Goff, I was kind of saying to our little group text, I was kind of thinking Fitzpatrick might not be the worst thing for the Lions if we got nobody.
1 year deal and then draft a quarterback at 7.
Put a young guy in the room and let him learn with him. Like, why not?
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be a bust ultimately, though, in Washington. I think this is not the move that you make when you're looking to have that quarterback that takes you to the next level. This is not the guy that you want, in my opinion.